Oh,
Hi guys, so this morning I did a live Facebook webinar with Connie Jacobs in the Brave Parenting Seminar, and it was really awesome, but the time frames were super tight and some people went over, some didn't, and it's just a little bit crazy. I got cut off halfway through, and I've been getting quite a few messages from people saying that they want that information. So I'm going to redo my speech for you so that you can get all the information, because all you got was the build up, so I want you to get the good stuff. So I'm going to start out by telling you quickly about my life story. Very quickly, I'm a kid from foster care. 5 months of age, I was apprehended due to neglect and placed into a foster home. At 8 months, I went to live with who I consider my parents. And now I'm 55 years old. And 55 years ago, nobody knew about prenatal exposure and how trauma affects a developing brain. And they didn't know, or they didn't not know, I don't know. But all they would look at was, okay, we have a child who doesn't have a home and we have people who can't conceive naturally. So we'll bring them together and our work here is done. Perfection, right? We all lived happily ever after. Well, no, we didn't. So let's talk about what trauma does to a developing brain. A child who experiences trauma and experiences prenatal exposure and loss and foster care is considered a child from hard places. I'm the kid from hard places. Trauma and stress put us in what we call full court. And what that means is children who have experienced trauma are changed and their brains no longer function the same way. So when I say full court, what I mean is that due to the trauma, a child is always putting out the stress hormone cortisol, meaning they're in fight or flight all the time. They live in their emotional brain, their low brain. This term was studied and coined by a child psychologist by the name of Dr. Karen Purvis out of Fort Worth, Texas. She did actual testing and proved that these kids have higher than normal cortisol levels, and they're all what I call they're constantly in what I call high alert. So they were always waiting for the next missile to be lobbed at us or fired at us. They don't trust people. They're on the lookout all the time. And because of this, they have a hard time with emotional regulation. So I always like to say that they're an emotion waiting to happen. I was that kid. I was the kid no one wanted around. I could not handle stressful situations and noise because of my traumatic start in life. And due to the fact that my mother drank when she was pregnant with me, I have sensory processing disorder also. So I really struggled. And if I'm honest, I still struggle. I struggle with loud noises, big crowds of people, chaos, stress. And trauma kids can't process the unknown. So not having a plan is kryptonite for me. Not being organized or surprise events or visits. Even if they're going to be fun, the unknown is super hard and causes great anxiety. So all that to say, trauma kids can be an enigma and pretty much misunderstood all of the time. So fast forward many years and I get married. My husband and I have 2 biological sons, and then we decide to foster and adopt a little girl from the system. Our daughter Serenity was the product of a woman who was a drug addict and most likely an alcoholic. She had led a very high-risk lifestyle, and Serenity came to her foster nana and papa's home one night in December after being removed from a crack den. She arrived at 2 in the morning, hungry, dirty, and cold. She lived with the foster nana and papa for the first 11 years of her life, and then she came to us. Again, another change, another loss. Her foster nana and papa were incredible people, and they loved her dearly, and they cuddled and smooched and played and interacted with her, and they surrounded her with love and attention, but sadly the damage is already done. And since we were required to foster Serenity first, she was still forced to do visits with her bio parents. And because of the risks involved as to where the visits were held, a driver would pick her up every Tuesday morning and took her to the Boyle Street Mission to visit 2 drug addicts who rarely showed up. So once she was old enough to understand, she absolutely hated these visits, and she screamed and cried and clung to me for dear life. A consequence of this was that when people came to our home, the minute she heard the doorbell, she would instantly start screaming and searching for me and come running. We ended up actually disconnecting the doorbell because it was just too much stress for her at this point. So all that to say, her start in life plus the aftermath of foster system has contributed to a stressed out, anxiety-ridden 9-year-old little girl. So right now you're thinking, why am I telling you this? But Sally, I don't have a foster or adoptive child. But I would question that thinking today, because I think that right now with this pandemic, our kids are kids from hard places. This coronavirus is unprecedented and our kids are stressed out about it. Your kids have lost their normal, their school, they've lost their teachers, their friends. Mom and dad are home all the time. They themselves are home all the time and are not really allowed to go out much. This is not normal. Perhaps you're stressed out about money or your job or how you're going to be able to pay your bills. Trust me when I tell you, they know. Our kids feed off of our emotions, they know. And how do kids deal with this? Well, by acting out. And perhaps they're angrier or more lethargic or bored or uneasy, and it manifests in a way that's frustrating and uncooperative. Trust me, we're all living through this. So Serenity is 9 now, and even though we have homeschooled her and plan to continue, she is struggling. She can't go to her gym class or her history class. She can't play with her homeschool brothers or homeschool friends, and she can't see her older brothers who are out on their own. Even though she has been homeschooled and that part is already her normal, she's still struggling with this. I need everyone to understand this next statement. This is not homeschooling. This is pandemic schooling, and the two look nothing alike. Nothing is normal, and your kids know it. In a time span of 24 hours, you and your child have been thrown into a situation where you had to suddenly homeschool. I need you to understand this is not how normal homeschool works. And I also need you to know that this is not a time to bring school home. It's time to homeschool. I don't believe in bringing school home at the best of times, but I sure don't agree with it now. I have heard from several stressed mothers that teachers are going online and giving their kids twice what they would normally assign. That's unfair, it's unrealistic, and I would suggest that you respectfully speak to your individual teachers and tell them you cannot keep up with this pace, and that you won't be doing that. I'm sure they're doing the best they can, but teachers are not homeschoolers, and honestly, they don't understand the concept, and maybe they have not taken into consideration what your child may or may not be experiencing. Instead of hours of worksheets and online lessons, I challenge you to look at it in a different way. This opportunity can be seen as two things: a stressful burden or an opportunity to have fun and spend time connecting with your kids. I challenge you to take this time to truly connect with your kid. They need it more now than ever. They need connection with you. So I'm going to give you some tips and tricks to help you with your journey and help you get through this time thriving. Understand this. It won't always be perfect. You're going to screw up. We all do. I do every day. But shift your thinking from bringing school home to homeschooling. Let's make this about connection. I know parents are all getting a whole bunch of homework. I spoke to a mother the other day, and her child's teacher is having them do 4 hours of schoolwork a day. For a 7-year-old, that's ridiculous. Teachers are trying, and they've been thrust into this also, and they're thinking that like a teacher in a classroom. But you are not in a classroom, and you are not a teacher. So I would challenge you to not try and replicate that. Your job right now is to help them navigate their new normal. This is a completely different situation, and you can't do what they do in a classroom, so let it go and do your own thing. A lot of you may be thinking, "No, Sally, I'm good. My kids are doing great. We're all good." What does stress look like in a child? Here's how your child shows that they may be struggling. They may be snapping at you or irritable. They're trying to process what's happening to stifle their fear. That often manifests as anger. A younger child may regress a bit. They may be whiny or clingy and start to act more babyish. Don't be irritated. Understand that their behavior is always communication, and do not mock them or become annoyed. They're trying their best with this new normal. Your child may be having trouble sleeping or wanting to sleep all the time. They may want to sleep until noon. Let them. It's fine. Their brains are on fire, and this is how they're coping. They may be hungry all the time. Fun fact, a child who's in full court burns fat and protein 3 times faster than the normal human. So if your child is flipping out or angry, before you go any further, investigate. Hand them a water bottle and something to eat, a slice of cheese or beef jerky or something quick that will calm the fire in their body. Don't use carbs, they don't work. First, address if they are hungry or thirsty, and then you can delve in a little further. They may want screen time all the time. It is mindless, and it's a way for them to really start to stop the thinking that's going on in their brain and stop the worrying. So it can help them escape and shut their fears down. Now, that doesn't mean they should have 24-hour access to it, but it does mean that we maybe need to let up a bit about it. This is something I also struggle with. They may be feeling bored and lazy, and I call this running cold or blue. My daughter will say that she feels like the meh emoji. My daughter will say that there are a ton of things I could and should be doing right now my own self in my own home, but I don't do them because some days I just lack motivation. That's okay. Cut yourself some slack. It's valid, and don't make your kid feel bad for it either. Typically when Serenity runs blue or lethargic, she needs physical exercise. So let's talk about that a little further. Start your day giving your kid a good breakfast. And when they wake up without an alarm, did you hear that? Without the alarm. Get them involved. Have them help you get breakfast ready. Ask them what they want about their day and what they feel like doing today. Get them involved. They may not want to do much, as we've discussed earlier. They may be lethargic. So the first order of business might be going for a walk or doing an online exercise class. Or maybe it looks like running around the house, chasing a balloon or jumping jack challenge. or a dance party. Put on the tunes and bust a move. Extra points for spatula microphones, I'm just saying. The key here is to have fun and to get them feeling something again. Fresh air is really good to get rid of the cobwebs, so hand them the sidewalk chalk and get them coloring your driveway. Or fill water bottles with water and food coloring and tell them how to paint the snow. Tell them to go paint the snow. Get creative. Do what you have to do. The other day, my husband took Serenity on a walk, and they ended up turning it into a race to see who would get to certain landmarks the fastest. And just for the record, let them win. They need to see success right now. If you have a swing set, let them swing. We actually have a swing in our basement, and it has been a godsend. But if yours is outside, then that's a double win because it's fresh air and exercise. The key is get them moving and make it fun, not structured, and not let it feel like work. Talk to your kids about meals and let them help you create a meal plan. Put your older kids in charge of 1 meal a week and get them baking. If you have a kid learning fractions, which I do right now, double that recipe and there's your math class, and they didn't even know it. This may be a good way to stock your freezer with meals so that they have a good stock for when life resumes. This is a value in some activity. There is value in some academic studies and worksheets. Maybe pick and choose a bit. Don't overwhelm your kids because they have a small threshold for overwhelm right now. Trust me, so do I. So if they seem up for it, great, do it. But not only in small doses, but there's also learning in play. And play is important right now. Play board games and engage their minds in strategies. Make a water table in a Rubbermaid container and grab some kitchen stuff and let them play. We used painter's tape on the floor in our basement and made hopscotch. And Serenity shoots basketballs in the basement and when doing math facts. These are many ways to learn without worksheets. Help them to pursue things that they've never tried and maybe never had time for before. Another thing is to get your kids reading. Read aloud to them and have them read to you. Dive into a really good book series. This is the time. You have the time. The key here is that when they think back to this time, we want our kids to remember the pandemic of 2020 as, oh, it was so awesome. We had so much fun and we spent so much time with our mom and dad and we learned so many cool things. I learned how to change a tire and how to change the oil in the car from my dad. And my mom did crafts and she taught me how to sew. We want our kids to look back on this time as the best time with fond memories. And we want to show them what resiliency looks like, that change can be good. And remember but most importantly, what you want your children to remember from the pandemic of 2020 is the certainty of having imperfect parents who show up for them, who put their best foot forward, and who did their best to make their kids feel loved and appreciated during their own fears around this unprecedented time in history. And when worse comes to worse and none of you are having any fun and it's starting to feel like Groundhog Day, I say call a snow day. Everybody stay in your PJs, make popcorn for breakfast, watch movies, and eat junk food. And don't even feel one bit bad about it because everybody needs a mental health break day. And the biggest message is be kind to yourself, cut yourself some slack, and give grace to yourself and to your kids. You've got this. 100%. And reach out if you need any more information. Thanks so much.